Breaking news, the Biden administration and the DNC are looking into ways to hack into your phone and censor your text messages. So welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss Resurrected. Before we get into it, please don't forget to subscribe on my new channel, like this video, comment on this video. Let's show YouTube that they may try to nuke this channel as well, but they can't stop us. We will come back resurrected because, as Ralph Smart says, if you don't fight for what you love, you will have to mourn for what you lost. So this is us making a voice. This is me in particular raising a voice against things going on in this country. So hopefully you like my channel and the content and subscribe. Help me get back to where I was. Let's go into the story. According to this article from the Daily Wire by Tim Pierce, this released today, the Biden administration and the Democratic National Convention are pushing cell phone carriers to crack down on censoring text messages that spread as whatever they define as misinformation regarding the vaccines, aka the jabs. Article goes on to read that the Democratic National Committee and other allies of President Joe Biden are reportedly pushing social media companies and SMM carriers, aka your cell phone carriers, to censor vaccine disinformation spread on their platforms. The effort, reported on Monday in Politico, comes as the Biden administration struggles to boost vaccination rates for failing to meet its July 4th goal. As Politico reports, Biden allied groups, including the Democratic National Committee, are also planning to engage fact-checkers more aggressively and work with SMM carriers to dispel misinformation about vaccines that is sent over social media and text messages. The goal is to ensure that people who may have difficulty getting a vaccination because of issues like transportation see these barriers lessened or removed entirely. The White House said Tuesday that it is intended to adopt the door-to-door vaccination awareness strategy and announced that raised alarms among many that the federal government was tapping into private medical records and sending federal agents to the homes of the unvaccinated. Now, the rest of the article is going to get onto that failed policy of the door-to-door, but I digress and want to focus back on this whole text message policy. So let that sink in for a moment. They are planning to censor your text messages. Now, we already know where social media platforms fall on this issue because they've been on board on the censorship train since the very beginning of the pandemic. It's as if they use the pandemic as an excuse to control content, control information that is flowing through their spaces, their marketplace, which they own over 90% of it when you combine Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and their market share is well over 90% of the market space. So they're now in a position to control the information, control what you see, control what you know, and what you know to be real. And they've seized upon this opportunity to take advantage of that as some safety precaution under the guise. And the first instance that, and I've already been the victim, as I mentioned at the intro of this video, this is my second channel since starting YouTube about 11 months ago. YouTube actually nuked my channel 2 weeks prior to this day for talking about this very here topic regarding the pandemic and a lot of misinformation being propagated and or the lack of open conversation on the topic from all sides. So now this is me rebuilding, restarting, and so I've already been the victim of censorship. But what got me on to do this was the White Coat Summit back in July of 2020, for instance. So we all heard on social media at the start of the pandemic, don't listen to your high school friends. Are you going to listen to them or medical experts? And yet, in July of 2020, a group of medical doctors led by Dr. Simone Gold, among others, went to the Supreme Court, I believe it was, to discuss what they thought was the conversation and facts not being discussed as it pertains to the virus and pandemic. And just as the video was going viral and collecting hundreds of thousands, if not about 1 million or so views, within a period of 12 hours overnight, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter all collaborated together to remove that viral video immediately. These were medical doctors, medical experts, many of them who were, in fact, I believe they were all practicing. These weren't people working in a lab and conducting studies. These were people literally putting their practice to work, seeing actual results with actual patients. One of the doctors who got criticized up the wazoo, Dr. Stella Emanuel in Harris County, Texas, claimed she saw over 300 patients during the course of those couple of months of the pandemic, treated them a certain way, and not one of those patients has ever come forward to claim medical malpractice or this isn't true. And yet the video was totally wiped away because it went against the narrative. That this went to show it was not about misinformation. It's about particular information in a specific narrative that you had to stick to. And that alarmed me when I saw that these medical doctors with licenses to practice medicine, that was these executives from Silicon Valley telling these medical doctors, you don't have the right to say this. We don't like your information. We choose this medical expert. They're deciding what was and what was not allowed science. And that alarmed me to no end because this was modern day book burning. And so I had to speak out. We know the side that they've fallen on because that's their ideological side anyway. So they're going to support their side's narrative, their side's information. We've seen Facebook censor information and post and threaten to terminate accounts. We've seen Twitter suspend only one political group constantly, despite the fact that there are those on the left that are doing the same exact activities and are able to get away with it without any problem, without any repercussions. And then, of course, like I said, YouTube has definitely taken a stand on what you are and are not allowed to talk about, period. Otherwise, you risk strikes. Not because you're offending anyone, not because you're breaking the law or suggesting breaking the law, but because you just do not fall in line with their ideology. We know where they fall in line. How about these cell phone companies now? It's getting to the point where you are not allowed to have certain conversations, infringing on your freedom of speech. Now, for those who say these are just private companies, not taking into account the fact that these private companies, again, pretty much control the public's, what's now become the public square, the public forum of where information and conversations are had. Now you're getting into the realm of, again, text messages. We always used to say, well, these social media sites should be acting like cell phone carriers, that they should not fear of being held liable for what happens or occurs on their site. No more, or nor should they have to agree with some of the content, no more than Verizon or AT&T would have to agree with a lot of the text messages and phone conversations that happen on their network, or T-Mobile, or what's the other one, Metro PCS. Yeah, they don't have to agree with the content of what's being said on their lines, on or through their text messages. Now, individuals do have to worry about the NSA bugging and collecting their data and making sure that they're not saying anything that will get them on the NSA's radar. But at the very least, you're never going to have to worry about losing your phone coverage for having conversations unbecoming. But now they're saying, you know what? There are certain conversations you're not even allowed to have between your friends and the family via text messages. That's the rabbit hole we're seen to be going down the path. It's all about death of 1,000 cuts. Take a little freedom here, take a little freedom there, and after 1,000 different cuts at your freedom, before you know it, you're dying of lack of blood. You are slaves. You're down this Marxist path that we need to fight. We need to raise a voice against. So I wanted to do this video to raise a voice of what's going on, and we need to make some noise and fight back against this potentially happening. Much like with the Biden administration suggesting door-to-door knockings to verify whether or not if you've gotten a jab, and now they backpedal, which I don't think they ever were intending, to be honest, of sending federal agents. It was always going to be volunteers. But how were they going to enact that? How that data was going to be collected? thanks to the pushback, I believe that they were able to slow that or curtail that. We need to push back on this attempt. And it makes me wonder also, where do the phone companies lie? Are they in agreement with this? Are they going to publicly announce this? Was this just leaked? And again, we know that the left own academia. They own the school systems, both public schools as well as the universities. They own the entertainment industry. They pretty much dominate over 88% of the media that you consume, the legacy media particularly. Do they own corporate America? I'd say a good majority of them, or those who heavily lean left and will be more than willing to help out the Biden administration to do their part, given that they voted for them in all likelihood. This may actually happen. I mean, we've already seen Toyota bow to the Democratic Party and far left by refusing to give donations to Republicans who dared to support their constituents who had certain beliefs about what happened in 2020 election. So we see corporate America bending already to some degree. Will these cell phone carriers do the same? That's the threat. That's the big threat to our democracy, our land of the free, home of the brave, supposedly. But right now, it's only going to take brave people to speak up, raise a voice, call your local representatives, your congressmen, your senators, and really push back against this. And then there's 2022 primaries where you really need to make your voice heard in regards to all of these issues to make sure that something like this can never occur. I know, again, we're already being spied on by the NSA, the CIA, and the FBI likely, but you need to make sure that your freedoms to communicate are not interrupted. So that's all. That's the story for today. This is Bruce the Boss Resurrected. Don't forget to, again, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, help me rebuild, and let YouTube know they can't take us all down, can't take our pride. We're coming back strong. This is Bruce the Boss, and I'm out. Peace.